Stages Houston is always putting on amazing performances, and Das Barbecue is no different. This comedy is going to have you stomping your feet, slapping your knees, and laughing out loud. It reimagines Wagner's epic music drama, The Ring Cycle, as a hilarious Texas hootenanny. By the way, I've always wanted to say hootenanny out loud. Say it with me, hootenanny. Das Barbecue is playing now through June 1st, so get your tickets and watch 5 incredible actors transform into over 30 outrageous characters. Hold on to your hats, y'all, and get your tickets at stageshouston.com today. Today on CityCast Houston, it's Friday, so we're breaking down the biggest stories of the week in Houston. And before we get started, the CityCast Houston Summer Road Tripping Guide is up right now on our website, houston.citycast.fm, and in Hey Houston. Today's featured destination is Port Aransas. This unique beach town marked with salty vibes and sun-soaked memories is where family traditions unfold naturally, and beauty lies both in island views and the unhurried moments between adventures. And with 18 miles of shorelines, there's a lot of adventure to be had. Start planning your trip to Houston's beach at visitportaransas.com. Start your new favorite family tradition in Port Aransas, Texas. It's Friday, May 16th. I'm Raheel Ramzanali, and here's what Houston's talking about. I've got Isaac Yu with me here, Texas government reporter at the Houston Chronicle. Isaac, how are you holding up with all of this heat right now, our first taste of summer?
I'm real happy about it. I grew up in Texas, so I'm real used to this weather. I love the heat.
Oh, man, even in May right now, I feel like May is like a little buffer between April and that really hot humidity of June. I don't know, this buffer didn't feel good at all right now.
I think the spring's been real lovely, and I'm very ready for summer.
So you're good with it. All right. Mm-hmm. We got a heat man here. That's I did not expect that. I'll be honest with you, Isaac. I was out with my daughter. We're playing some tennis, and usually we can we'll go for an hour, and about 30 minutes in, she was like, okay, I'm not ready for this heat. And even I was like, okay, this is a little too hot right now. And it's been historic, right? Because most of the state is under what's called a heat ridge. And yes, that's technically different than a heat wave. So 2 different things. But Tuesday, we hit 95 degrees at Bush Airport, which broke a 118-year record this week. So, this is historic stuff we're dealing with. It's also humid. And my big fear here, Isaac, is that are we going to have a record-breaking summer as well? Ugh, I don't want that.
Bring it on. Bring it on, man.
Bring it on. Oh my gosh. All right. I'm gonna hit you up when it's 110 degrees and be like, how you holding up? Hey, Isaac, I know you've been busy this week with covering the STAAR test. Tell me what is happening right now, because this is by far one of the most disliked things in education. What's taking place right now here at the state legislature with STAAR?
Lawmakers in the Texas legislature are contemplating a plan that would scrap the STAAR entirely and replace it with a different testing system. The plan would be a big, big redesign. It would be the biggest shift since STAAR kind of came online in 2011. I was in school when that happened, I remember. So this has been around for a while. Mm-hmm. But people really dislike the test for a number of reasons that we can get into. But a lot of parents and teachers have been asking for some kind of change. And now it looks like there's political will to do that.
Yeah, it looks like it's universally moving in the right direction. And basically, STAAR is the big test that students will take in public education starting in the 3rd grade, and will take it all the way up until the 11th grade, until they become seniors, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason people don't like it, and I'm a parent, I have a 4th grader who just took the STAAR test a couple of weeks ago. It places a lot of pressure, not only on the students, of course, with one test in reading and then one test in math, but it also places a lot of pressure on schools and teachers, because this is how they're rated as well, right? When you look at the school rating system. So it's a lot of pressure to just start teaching for a test instead of just teaching to learn information and really engaging students.
For sure. And that phenomena of teaching to the test that you mentioned, where teachers will take days or weeks out of a school year to specifically cram in these knowledge and skills that will be on the test, is one of the practices that lawmakers say they want to end. But also, part of the ethos here is if you're going to put these kids and these teachers under this kind of stress, you kind of want to get something out of it at least. You want improvement. You want to help identify weakness. You want to help put students on a plan to improve. And right now, with the way this test is set up, it just doesn't do that. You take the test in the spring, you get your results in, July when everyone's out of session. The next school year, you get a new teacher. There's just not much year-to-year improvement that can be done through this test.
Isaac, the other thing with this, and we keep bringing up the stress, right, for the students and the teachers, what is the STAAR requirement right now in terms of like passing and moving on to next grade?
Right. You no longer need to pass STAAR in every grade level to move on. That's a change that has been made in the last 5 years or so, I believe. But there are still high school requirements. You have to pass the high school versions of the STAAR in order to graduate. There are some alternative options if you don't, but for the vast majority of graduates, that's the requirement.
Okay, gotcha. So currently the House bill has passed that is going to eliminate STAAR, but there's still a lot of questions left and a lot of hurdles left as it heads to the Senate side because STAAR testing is linked to school rating system. So both of these bills right now, the House one and the Senate one, what's the key differences? Like what's the holdup that could be an issue in not getting STAAR removed and something else put in place?
Well, senators have just not shown as big of an appetite for overhauling or replacing STAAR. I think everyone agrees that STAAR is bad. The Senate has just not done as much work in this area. And also, the thing to know about the Senate is power really is concentrated with the Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and what he says goes in that chamber. And he hasn't weighed in publicly on whether STAAR should be scrapped or whether he likes this House plan. So there's still a lot up in the air. And I do want to emphasize that STAAR may not be going away if lawmakers don't get this done by the end of the session, which is in just a few weeks.
And I believe the House bill, the way it's written, it would be eliminated next fall, right? Like as soon as next fall. What would take STAAR's place? Because there still has to be something there, right? There's no way we're getting rid of all of the testing because it is still a good way to see how students are progressing, where they need to improve. And frankly, testing is a big business here in the state, right? So there's a cost factor associated. So what exactly is going to take its place?
For sure. There's going to be some kind of new testing system. It's going to have a new name. We don't know what it is yet. The name of Texas's standardized tests has changed kind of every 10 to 15 years over the last few decades anyways. But the change in the test would be replacing this one big test that you take at the end of the year with three much, much shorter tests. One would be given in October. That would be kind of the first diagnostic test. You'd be able to get the results really quickly within 24 hours online for both teachers and parents. You'd be able to improve on that, kind of create a lesson plan that hopefully would be individualized to a student based on that test score. That knowledge would then be rechecked sometime in January or February. That would be the middle of your test. Same process kind of happens again. And then you do have a final end of your test. But again, all three of these tests are between 40 and 60 minutes, which is much shorter than the multi-hour kind of multi-day exams that students are currently doing.
All right. When do you think we'll have an answer on all of this if STAAR is going to be replaced? What's next right now with the state legislature as it stands?
The end of the session is on June 2nd. So if nothing happens by then we know STAAR is coming back for next year. But there are a lot of moving pieces, so we could find out as early as next week or the week after whether lawmakers are going to move forward with this plan.
Perfect. And speaking of state and education, also right now in HISD, Texas Education Agency Commissioner Mike Morath was here this week to assess how state-appointed Superintendent Mike Miles is doing before he releases the state's 2-year update on the takeover. And based on everything Morath has been saying publicly, he had only good things that came to mind when he was talking about Mike Miles and everything that HISD is currently doing with the improvements under Miles. He, in fact, said it was spectacular, but there's been a lot of controversy with this visit because parents were claiming HISD started to clean up schools, paint schools, make them look nicer, work that should have been done a long time ago, but they started doing it now because TEA Commissioner Mike Morath was here. So, parents are not happy at all right now.
It kind of reminds me of when you're in school, maybe the teacher steps out for a couple minutes and then everyone goes wild and then they come back and you're like, oh, we got to get in place. Sounds like that kind of situation with Marath visiting this week. The thing that put HISD in this takeover under Mike Miles in the first place is related to the STAAR, is that its schools, based on their STAAR tests, got too many D and F ratings, too many consecutive years, which that's a fear that a lot of school districts face, especially larger urban school districts with more low-income students. That's a real fear of the state coming in and taking over your district. Kind of going back to the STAAR test, that bill also overhauls the accountability system by letting districts bring in other factors outside of the tests, like extracurricular offerings and workforce development programs, as well as pre-K. So part of that plan, part of that bill may also help school districts avoid takeovers by giving them more leeway to improve their ratings.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. And that would help a lot, right? For schools that feel like, hey, this is not a fair look at how we operate, how we impact students, how we're doing things here. So that would help a lot as well. And it's funny how you mentioned that, when students act up and the teacher comes back in and everyone's on their best behavior, this is where I was kind of frustrated with this. And it's always kind of weird, right? Like, look, I get it. Mike Marath put Mike Miles in charge, right? So they're working hand in hand. They want to make HISD better, all of that. But wouldn't it be better served for Mike Marath just to show up on a random Tuesday and nobody knows? Like he just walks in, kind of like undercover boss, and you get to see right, like what's happening in HISD truly. Because by all accounts, Superintendent Mike Miles does this for schools. Like he'll just show up and we'll see like how are schools operating, how are teachers doing, are they implementing his curriculum, the new education system plan correctly, all that stuff, right? So wouldn't it be better to like get a true snapshot of what is happening at HISD if he just showed up, as opposed to like, hey, let's clean up everything, let's make sure we're on our best behavior and all that? It just makes no sense.
I agree, probably some element of undercover boss. I don't know if that's something that Mike Marath does do in other schools.
Yeah.
Maybe just with the high stakes nature of HISD struggles right now, a lot of attention on it with the media and with parents. Maybe that played into it. But I agree that maybe an element of surprise there is needed.
By the way, up next, Mike Marath will release a 2-year report. As I mentioned, that is required by law. So he has to decide if the board of managers he appointed will continue for another 2 years, or is he going to start a transition back to a democratically elected board? Basically, how long will the takeover last? And we'll hopefully get a better picture and a timeline of the future for HISD.
And that experience of this takeover, whether it ends soon or in a couple of years from now, I will say that really is informing the way legislators are talking about public education. With the STAAR bill, with other bills, the takeover has really been top of mind.
Isaac, how else are state lawmakers talking about public education right now? Because we know school vouchers are a thing, and that's something that is going to impact the state of Texas. But along with school vouchers, there was talks of getting new public education funding, right? That's something that hasn't happened since 2019. What's the latest with that?
So actually, lawmakers just announced this week they've reached a deal after a lot of back and forth on public school finance. It looked like maybe schools were going to get less money, but now it sounds like they're getting $8 billion, which I will say is still less than administrators and teachers are saying the state needs. That $8 billion increase includes mostly teacher incentive raises. So based on things like the STAAR test, teachers could qualify for raises. It does also include a small bump to what's called the basic allotment, or how much schools receive per student. That's a number that hasn't increased in several cycles. And with all this inflation that's going on, public school leaders are saying the money they've received from the state actually has less buying power than it did a decade ago.
Yeah, this is going to be a big deal, right? Like, yes, there is more funding, but how much of this is really going to help schools, right? Because you mentioned inflation. A lot of schools are facing insurance crisis, right? Because of where the schools are, because of the wild weather that our state goes through. This is something that is going to be another big topic. And yeah, 8 billion, as you mentioned, sounds good, but is this going to be enough? And then to go back to the STAAR testing, if that is replaced, what happens with the language in this bill? Like, how is that going to impact it? Are they going to go back to the drawing board? Because as you mentioned, STAAR testing, the results of that impact how much teachers earn. It's like, what's going to come first, the chicken or the egg here? And how are things going to be worked out?
I do think part of the STAR bill, the idea here is that a teacher can be measured not just on how their students are doing that given year, but how much of an improvement you see between the first test, the second test, and the third test.
Mm.
Other than that, a lot of the other details of the bill are still to be determined, but that's one change we know is happening.
Isaac, I know you're covering the legislature with June 2nd as the last day. That is so close. It's only a few weeks away. It seems like there's still so much left to be done and so many things need to be hammered out. Are we looking at some special sessions here right now, or do you think all this is going to get done by June 2nd?
Yeah, so my colleague John Moritz posed that question to our governor, Greg Abbott, recently. And our top lawmakers have expressed optimism that we won't have to go to a special session, that all the issues will be worked out.
Mm.
There are a couple of thorny ones, namely banning THC and reaching a deal on bail reform that could pose a problem. Right now, people are at least saying on the outside, we're working together well and we're going to get through the end of this.
All right, we'll see what happens there. The state legislature coming to an end here. A lot of educational topics still to be discussed and how they'll impact not only parents who live in HISD, but parents across, our area. So we'll definitely be watching closely. It's not a Texas road trip until you've gone to the Gulf. And just off the Texas coast sits a unique beach town marked with salty vibes and sun-soaked memories, Port Aransas. This is where family traditions unfold naturally, and beauty lies both in island views and the quiet moments between adventures. And with 18 miles of shoreline, you can cast your line, kayak with the kids, or simply cruise the coast in a golf cart. Port Aransas is where multiple generations can get together under one roof to share slow mornings in front of the beach and cool evenings with the Gulf breeze. It's time to sit back, bury your feet in the sand, and let Port Aransas anchor your new family traditions. Go to visitportaransas.com and plan your visit to Houston's beach. Y'all, the Sunday Scaries are a real thing, and one way I avoid them is by joining my fellow Houstonians for Jazzy Sundays in the park. This is one of my favorite events because my wife and I get to sit back and take in some great jazz performances while our daughters hang out with kids from across the city. This is truly a community event celebrating H-Town, and it's all free. Jazzy Sundays in the Park is going to be at the Waterworks Lawn at Buffalo Bayou Park all month long before it wraps up for this year's season. Performances are from 5 to 7 p.m., so it's the perfect way to end your weekend on a high note and soak up our city's vibrant culture and jazz heritage. You've got to come check out these great local musicians. So grab a blanket and some chairs, pack your picnics, and head to Jazzy Sundays in the Park. Find the full schedule of performances at buffalobayou.org. That's buffalobayou.org. All right, Isaac, we're going to go from education to Jeep Weekend. All right, this is a transition. Look, there's no way to do it. There's no smooth segue here, but Jeep Weekend is happening here in Bolivar, the Galveston area, and it is one of the wildest weekends of the year. So basically, Jeep Weekend is where a bunch of Jeep owners, like the car, will head to Bolivar and drive up and down Crystal Beach. And it started like as a cool little meetup a few years ago, but it has turned into one of the craziest weekends. Like 100,000 people head to Crystal Beach and go buck wild, okay? Last year, there were 300 arrests, and also one person died after being shot. So like, this is serious stuff of what's happening and the impact of Jeep Weekend. It's to the point where people on Bolivar, the peninsula right next to Galveston, they'll just leave for the weekend because they don't even want to deal with these crowds because they get so rowdy. So this year, finally, Galveston County Sheriff Jimmy Fullen put in some new rules. At one point, he was like, we're just going to shut this down. Like, we don't want this to happen because it's impossible, it seems like, to be out there, make sure everyone's safe, to get enough officers. But this year, what they're doing is putting in stricter rules. And I'll go over that in a second. But Isaac, have you heard of Jeep Weekend, or do you want to go there? Does it sound like your cup of tea?
I have not. I will say, as a kid, I did kind of want to own a Jeep. It was like what all the cool kids had.
Yeah.
They're way too expensive, I think. But that does not sound like my cup of tea now. I actually had been thinking about planning a weekend trip to Galveston, and now I'm glad that I've chosen a different location.
Yeah, definitely, because this is not the weekend to be there. This is a weekend you stay away. But let's talk about the new rules real quickly. So what's going to happen is there's only one way in and one way out for beach access. So Bolivar, which is the peninsula, that is where everyone heads. And there's this one famous stretch of beach called Crystal Beach. And that's where you can go up and down the beach. And that's where all the Jeep riders will park and set up their tents. That's not happening this year. You will go onto the beach. You're going to go 15 miles per hour. And once you hit the exit point, you got to get out and then you make a turn and come back around. So that is hopefully going to stop like large gatherings on the beach where the fights break out, where there's a lot of public intoxication. People just go crazy. So they're hoping this will kind of tame that and things won't be as bad. But man, it is wild. The videos out of it, like I'm going to link some in our show notes. Have you ever seen any of the videos from Jeep Weekend, Isaac?
I have not.
Okay.
I definitely will go Google that right now, though.
Yeah, it's crazy. You got to watch them. It is just madness. 100,000 people, hoping everyone stays safe out there. And speaking of Galveston, look, if you maybe own a home right now in Galveston, this is the time because there is a big Airbnb market crash right now. So basically what happened was during the pandemic, interest rates were so low that people started buying up a lot of houses there and got into that, entrepreneur spirit of I'm going to run an Airbnb and I'm going to have rental properties. So all of these homes were bought and people were excited, but you fast forward and now there are buyers who are trying to get out of these investment homes for a lot of reasons. One of them being that Galveston County started treating short-term rentals as a business. So there's an added tax on them. So right now there are 1,000 homes available in Galveston to purchase. That's a 40% increase from last year. That's crazy.
That is crazy. I will say I was looking at the Galveston Airbnbs. They were still not cheap. So maybe that's why people aren't going.
Yeah, like tough to be an Airbnb renter, but if you want to buy a new home in Galveston, maybe if my wife is listening, maybe we can look into it because I've always wanted a home in Galveston. Our executive producer, Laura Eisenstein, was teasing me. She's like, this is your chance. Go get one right now. I looked them up, Isaac. Still pretty expensive to buy a house.
And the insurance is going to kill you.
That's it right there. That's another big thing. Insurance is so high over there. I mean, it's high all over. We're facing a home insurance crisis across our area and the state. But Galveston is a different beast when it comes to home insurance because it's near the water, of course, the hurricanes. So it is a lot more expensive there. And that is another reason why people are pulling out of Galveston.
For sure.
Hi, I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast. We've all set health goals, lose weight, exercise more, eat better. But without a plan, those goals often fade. That may have happened to you. It has definitely happened to me. And that's where Prolon comes in. Prolon's 5-day fasting mimicking diet gives you a science-backed, structured approach to stay on track and see real results. And now Prolon is upping their game with the new next-gen 5-day program, delivering the same science-backed benefits in a cleaner, more convenient, and more flavorful format. Prolon is a plant-based nutrition program featuring soups, snacks, and beverages designed to nourish the body while keeping it in a fasting state, triggering cellular rejuvenation and renewal. Next Gen builds on the original Prolon with 100% organic soups and teas, a richer taste, and ready-to-eat meals. Developed over decades at USC's Longevity Institute and backed by top U.S. medical centers, Prolon has been shown to support biological age reduction, metabolic health, skin appearance, fat loss, and energy. I've been doing the 5-day program, and I feel so much better. I really enjoy the tasty energy bars, the snacks and soups, and the fact that I can enjoy meals, even though the calorie count is super low. The flavors and textures are excellent. An olive oil snack here, broccoli and quinoa soup there, hibiscus tea, a yummy nut bar. It's got the benefits of a 5-day fast, but doesn't have the challenge of doing it with pure liquids. It's a system reset. And also, I know this sounds funny, but it's not. The packaging and directions are fantastic, clear and well organized and thoughtful. For a limited time, you can be first in line to experience the new Next Gen at special savings. Prolon is offering CityCast listeners 15% off site-wide, plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day program. Just visit prolonlife.com/city. That's PROLONLIFE.com/city to claim your 15% discount and your bonus gift. prolonlife.com/city.
H-Town really comes alive in spring, and especially in the heart of our city, downtown Houston. There's so much to do, so grab your crew and explore everything downtown Houston has to offer. From their vibrant parks to their sizzling food scene, and of course, those amazing free outdoor events all season long. Want to just gather the family and hang out like I enjoy doing? Downtown Houston has you covered. Head to Market Square Park or Trebley Park for kid-friendly games, movies under the stars, and so much more. To really be in the know, text downtown to 56512, where you'll find maps, the best parking spots, special events, and more. You can also find all of the fun and free events at downtownhouston.org. Spring is here, so come eat, play, and explore in downtown Houston. Get revived and energized in downtown. All right, Isaac, let's get to our moment of joy. What are you excited about? What made you happy this week?
So I have been thinking and looking forward all week to a trip I'm going on, not to Galveston, but actually to the town you mentioned at the top of the show, Port Aransas, right near Corpus Christi. And my plan is to actually do a little bit of driving on the beach. So I do get the appeal for the Jeep owners there, but not in a Jeep and hopefully not with as many crowds.
Yeah, hopefully it's not as crowded. Port Aransas is awesome. Corpus Christi is just a short drive away, like 45 minutes away from Port Aransas. But yeah, I love that you can just drive up on the beach. That's one of my favorite things. I love going to the beach, but I love parking my car right there, setting up a tent, and just enjoying our awesome, awesome coastline. It's so amazing. Now, what are you planning to do in Port Aransas?
Just a lot of beach time, I've never been there, so going to check out kind of the city area and see what kind of restaurants are available. But it looks like the weather will be nice this weekend. Very hot, but again, that's how I like it.
That's okay.
So yeah, just excited for some sun and some ocean.
That's awesome. Check out our summer road trip and guide, which is up on our website, houston.citycast.fm, and you can find some tips on Port Aransas and other great destinations across the state of Texas as well. I'm so happy for you. You get a chance to do that. Okay, my moment of joy is about being a sports fan here in the city of Houston and Texas overall. Look, we don't have it easy. It sucks. Like, we don't win that many championships outside of baseball, right? Shout out to the Astros and the Rangers. But maybe things are going to get better because Harris County Democrats are working on a resolution right now that would ban Senator Ted Cruz from games that involve colleges and universities out of Texas, so we can officially get rid of the Ted Cruz curse. This is something we've talked about on the podcast so many times. University of Houston's heartbreaking loss to Florida in the NCAA title game in San Antonio last month. Guess who was there? Ted Cruz. Texas football losing to Washington in the college football playoffs 2 years ago. Guess who was there? Ted Cruz. So this theme goes on and on. In fact, Texas colleges, Isaac, are 1-8 when the senator is at big games.
Wow.
It's real. The Ted Cruz curse is real.
I didn't realize someone had actually done that analysis. That's wild. I remember during Cruz's re-election campaign last fall, that was a big theme for his opponent, always hitting him over the head just with kind of Twitter memes.
Yeah, it's one of those things that is real. Like, the record speaks for itself. But to be fair, Senator Ted Cruz has been in attendance for some big wins, right? For the Astros World Series run, he was at some of those games. So he was there for some big wins as well. But when it comes to Texas universities and colleges, when they're playing in big games, the record is not good. And yeah, the memes are outstanding. And, there is some seriousness in all of this as well in this resolution. So Harris County Democrat Party precinct chairs Bill Kelly and Charles Kuffner, this is the duo that's behind this resolution, pointed out that Senator Cruz should be focusing on protecting jobs for NASA and other federal employees after so many federal budget cuts, as opposed to being at these games, right? So like yes, they're having a little fun with this, but there's also this message of like, hey, like you should be doing your job as a senator for us, according to them.
I actually don't know the answer to this. Is that something that they actually have the power to do, or is it just a statement from the party?
I think it's a statement from the party, right? But I think they're saying more like, hey, why don't you be an advocate for us, right? For the state that you're representing, and maybe fight some of these federal cuts and keep jobs here and keep contracts here or whatever it is, right? So I think it's more of like, hey, be our ally here. Like that, you're here representing us. So that was one of the big messages from this. And yeah, like I get it, but it's also pretty funny.
It's definitely making for another round of memes.
For sure. Isaac, thank you so much for joining us. Have fun in Port Aransas. Enjoy the hot weather. All right, that you're the only one in Texas that's going to enjoy it, but have fun. And I really appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for having me.
That was Isaac Yu of the Houston Chronicle. You can read all of the stories we talked about today, including some of Isaac's work, with the links in our show notes. Now, do me a favor and please share this episode with 3 friends who have kids in a public school so they can catch up with what's happening with the STAAR test and school funding. Also, drop us a rating and review because it really helps us get the word out about CityCast Houston, and subscribe if you haven't yet. Looking for things to do this weekend? Check out our daily newsletter, Hey Houston, for events across H-Town. Thanks. That will do it for this week here on CityCast Houston. Our producer is Carleon Jones. Our newsletter editor is Brooke Lewis. Our executive producer is Laura Isensee. I'm your host, Raheel Ramzanali, and a special shout out this week to Lizzie Goldsmith for her expert help. Our music is by the band All the Kimonos, with additional music courtesy of White Noisemaker and Abbas Premji from Triple Scoop Music via Getty Images. We'll be back on Monday to talk about just how expensive housing is getting in Houston and what could help change that. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something new. Hold on, Isaac, I'm going to pause you there. Sorry, restart that because I think you were clicking on something and that was picking up.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah. No worries. Go for it.